Hi everyone, and welcome to my fall series. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. For this DIY, I'm using some of these Dollar Tree pumpkins and a pretty napkin, and I'm also going to use some paper I got from Hobby Lobby. It's an old vintage newspaper. I just thought the color was perfect and the look for the genre I'm going for. And it's very easy to get a pattern for these pumpkins because they are 3D, so you just rub anything hard along your paper and you can get an imprint on it and cut. And on the napkin, I just use a pencil. That was good enough for that one, and that gives me the pattern. Now, what I did for this video, I actually did a lot of research, is I chose common looks that cross over between Cottagecore and French Country and combined them to create DIYs that can be used for either look. So it's kind of two videos in one. There are common denominators between the two. Basically, they're like, the French Country is like a French cottage that's out in the countryside. That's often a working farm. And the cottagecore is like an English cottage that is out in the countryside. That is often a working farm. So it wasn't that hard to actually combine these two because they're both romanticized versions of that. So here's my little handy dandy mini sander. I love this thing. When this dried, I just went along the edges and sanded. See how that kind of goes in the curves? It's actually like a spongy material that you hold. Like the yellow part is soft and bendable. It's not hard, and it's really, really good for sanding around hard to get in edges. And now I'm just taking a little bit of the Dollar Tree ribbon. I did want to add a little pop of orange and warmth to this because this is a fall DIY. And I wanted the ribbons to go outwards along the edge of the pumpkin, and no matter how I tied them, I couldn't get it to quite stick, and I didn't want to glue the ribbon down on the outer edge of the pumpkin because sometimes you see the hot glue through the ribbon. So I chose to cut that orange gingham print there ribbon in half and then glue it so that it did what I wanted it to do, and then just glue the rest of the little ribbon pieces in between. And I decided, of course, it needs more lace, so I'm just adding in some little pieces of lace ribbon here and there. I love these for that reason. You can definitely tuck in and add to or take away, and it's no big deal. And of course the raffia bow on top to finish it off. And look at that. Those are so perfect for either one of these looks with French Country or Cottagecore. That is just perfect. And now we have the dunnage block. There they are. I've spoken about these many times in previous videos. You can find them at Lowe's, Home Depot, most lumber yards. The little groove in there is where they strap big, huge plywood sheets that they bring in, and they just use this wood to lower it down onto the pallet. They're like pallets basically, and then they throw them away. And they're often naturally rustic. They have ink print on it, which makes it look more vintage, and they're perfect for crafting if you like these kind of genres like Farmhouse, Cottagecore, French Country, anything like that. They're perfect. And if you have a nice manager, they'll give them to you for free if you ask. Now I'm just adding a brown leaf to keep it nice and warm and romantic. And I also tilted these pumpkins at a little angle outwards just to add a little extra charm. I don't know if you noticed that when I glued them together. And I'm distressing it a bit because once I put it on the dunnage block with the ink, I realized in order to tie it in, it looks a little bit better. And I'm going to take some of the Dollar Tree moss and glue it down in that groove. Now when I show these at the end, I did all through this video, I collected photos from the English countryside and the French countryside in the fall to make it extra special for you guys so you can enjoy the whole feeling of the romantic farmhouse. But here it is, and I think it's so, so pretty. For this next DIY, you're going to need that Domino game from the Dollar Tree, one of their plastic trays, and this free printable that I designed. It'll be down below in my description box. You can use any printable you want, but if you want that one, it will be down below in my description box. And you start off by drawing a design for a leg. So we're making little legs for our tray here, you guys. I was so excited to share this with you all because this really is a game changer for Dollar Tree faux trays with the legs, because we always just kind of try and find something we can glue on from the Dollar Tree, like the ping pong balls or the pot of gold leprechaun little legs or wooden cubes or wooden beads. But this takes it to another level because you can make wooden legs pretty much however you want. You just trace out the shape and then you cut it out, because as you can see, it was easy enough to cut, and then you're going to put it together. So you do have to sand a little bit because it does splinter, and also remember to draw the design on the wood side and on the printed side with the polka dots, because you're going to need them to be on either corner. You'll see, but just trust me, you have to do one of each so that you have the reverse leg on the reverse side. And I'm just measuring here, you know, to get my little print in there. And here I go gluing the legs down. So you just have to carefully line them up along the edge of the tray. And this is why it's important that you draw the design on the wood side and on the dotted side, because you're doing it in opposite angles. And then you put your strip of hot glue. I would actually recommend using a stronger glue like hot wood glue. Well, I call it hot wood glue, but the link down below in my description box, if you go check out the glue I use for that, it claims to glue metal, glass, everything. So I just recommend you use a stronger hot glue for this project. And then I also put a little bit of glue right where the angle met there. And as it dries, I move up and do it to the top as well, because when you paint it, that's going to make it look like one solid piece. So it just looks, or you could use wood filler too if you wanted to, but it comes out really good. And I want this tray to be warmer because it is an autumn tray. So I chose to use the color Territorial Beige from Apple Barrel Paint to distress it just a little bit. I'm not trying to make it look like wood, more like painted wood, maybe, or just stressed a little bit, maybe chipped a little bit, the paint chipping off. But if I just get a distressed look, that's fine too. And I took a little Mod Podge. I'm going to now glue down my print with the Mod Podge. So after I get the print glued on, I'm going to take my homemade white chalk paint and paint those little legs. Now watch what happens when I paint up towards the right hand corner where the hole is. See how it disappears? That's because I put the hot glue on the inside seam there, and it, you know, rolled up and melted into that hole and behaves like a wood filler and makes your legs look more connected and nice. And now after it dries, I'm just taking some of the Apple Barrel paint again in Territorial Beige and distressing it. To me, this part's important. I always take the darker color and make sure I put it in the seams, because with an old tray, those are the parts that would get dirty and kind of collect dust over time, and it just makes it look, to me, it adds a little more realism, in my opinion. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding the darker color around the edges, and that's it. And I love this. For this next craft, you're going to need some more Mod Podge and some pretty napkins in your choice, and some of these Dollar Tree foam pumpkins. And I'm going to take this little foam pumpkin and start tearing it apart. It comes apart really easy. These are so fun and versatile. You can do so many different things with this. Today, obviously, we're going to make this little guy move into the genre of the Cottagecore and French Country look, but really these little foam pumpkins, I think they're even hollow when you cut them in half. They're pretty, the possibilities are pretty endless with those. So I'm just taking the napkin that I used for the other pumpkins because I want to tie them in. I'm actually making this for a friend who is transitioning from French Country to Cottagecore. So all these DIYs are for her. And I'm going to make that pumpkin match the first little wood ones that I did. And this is just really simple. It's good old-fashioned decoupage. You're just going to tear up your napkins, put Mod Podge on your pumpkin, and tap that puppy on so that it goes in the grooves so you don't lose your pumpkin shape, because you want people to know you did a pumpkin. And that's it. You can find me and follow me on both Instagram and Pinterest. On Pinterest, I have something really neat going. I made a board for my subscriber friends' crafts. So when you are inspired by something that I make and you make it, I would love to see a photo of it. Even if it isn't something I made, maybe it just inspired you to craft something like a spin-off. I still would love to see it. I love to see what you guys do. And I thought Pinterest was a perfect place because that's where so many people go for inspiration. And it's just a great way for the rest of the world to appreciate what you've done as well. So I had a lot of questions on how to go about doing this. You upload your photo as a pin on Pinterest, and then you can send it to me in a private message over on Pinterest. There's a little symbol to the left-hand side if you're on a computer that looks like a pin, like literally a bulletin board pin, and a plus sign, and you click that, and that will allow you to share your pin with me, and then I can share it to my board. Now, I used to upload them myself, but I was getting some complaints that it was getting confusing, which were my crafts and which were other people's crafts, so now I don't do that anymore. I have to upload it as a separate pin to keep it, I guess, less confusing for everybody. If you want people to know who did it, make sure you write your name under there as the title. If you're a private person, you can just write a description of what you did, and you don't have to write anything at all. That's fine too, but I truly appreciate all of you talented people out there. Thank you so much to those of you that have shared your crafts with me. It's been a joy to see. So as you can see, I ended up having to skewer this little guy and not have my fingers touch him so much so that I wasn't accidentally removing the napkins while I was trying to apply it. And I use a piece of foam from some packaging I got from something I ordered, and that is a great trick for anything you need, to have minimal contact with, like Easter eggs, wooden beads. You'll see it later on in this video. I use it again, but the foam block, save those, you guys, for staking and letting things dry up in the air. It works really great. And so I choose to use a cinnamon stick for the stem just to add a little scent for my friend. I thought that would be cute. It'll be like a really pretty smelling little pumpkin. And you just push it down in the center of the foam. I get a lot of questions about those clippers on the right hand side too. That was from a girls gardening set from Walmart about 10 years ago that my kids got me, but I'm pretty sure it's a tool you can find in any gardening center. So that's all that is, and it cuts wood really well because it's meant to prune roses, so I've had good luck with it. And of course, we're going to keep the lace theme going. I'm just making a little lace bow. I'm going to hot glue that on. I'm going to be adding some greenery and some raffia, and that's it. We're going to end up with a super duper cute little French Country / Cottagecore pumpkin. For this craft, you're going to need this printable. It's actually a free download for your desktop as a wallpaper. Some wooden beads, I'm using the Dollar Tree beads, and this dry erase board from the Dollar Tree, and some wax. Now, I actually recommend in hindsight that you use a water-based stain or just brown paint to do the faux wood. I'm using the wax, so that's why I put it there to let you know what I used. But we'll wait till we get to that part, but it probably wasn't the best choice. So I'm using a blush brush. That's another one of my favorite methods to spread this wax on and try and make this board look like faux wood. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be covered, with the photo a little bit. So I'm more concerned about the edges, and I'm just tapping it here and lightly kind of brushing it as the wax is drying to try and get some different dimensions and texture to make it look more like it's wood. So this ends up being one of my favorite crafts, but here's what happens. I didn't rough up the surface of the whiteboard, and I didn't put any Mod Podge on it. I didn't take any steps, primer, nothing, to make it more, for adhesion. So the wax kept wanting to rub off. I don't know if I'd left it overnight for hours, if it would eventually cured. It seems to now. When I touch it, it doesn't change. But when I go to use my favorite method for not wrinkling, the glue stick right there, the Dollar Tree glue stick, the wax and the glue stick don't mix. And I think it's because the glue stick is kind of waxy and the wax is waxy, and they just weren't bonding. So you can see how easy I'm lifting it up. I actually left that in to show you how easy, it's not sticking. So I'm just trimming the edge there, and off camera I do end up lifting it up. I do half a side at a time, one side then the other side. I do end up putting Mod Podge underneath it and drying it just to get that image to stick down. But word of warning, you guys, rough up your surface a little bit. Use a paint or a water-based acrylic stain. If you're going to do wax, wait overnight to let it really cure and dry before you attempt to stick your image on. So here's an oldie but goodie. We take the Dollar Tree beads, put them on a skewer, and paint them. I was in the mood to do this, and my favorite method for doing this is the sponge brush, because it's got that tapered end and it allows you to kind of spin the beads and put the tapered end in between them, and that way you hit everything. And the beads do require 2 coats. So this is my first coat with my homemade chalk paint. If you're interested in this video, it's a new recipe. I love it. It's one coat for the most part. These beads are super bright, but it's super, super silky and smooth. And for those of you that were having trouble finding the ingredient for my original chalk paint video, this is a wonderful alternative, and I will leave the link down below in my description box for that video. So there's the foam again, and again, it's a great place to dry things. And I do end up taking, I want to make these a bit warmer, so I use the apple barrel paint in the antique parchment, and I just do 1 coat of that, and that's perfect. All the colors completely covered, and you could see they came off really easy. They didn't stick to the skewer stick, so everything worked out beautifully. And now I'm just taking and hot gluing them around this image. And this is what we have so far. Now, because I wasn't sure if my friend wanted the extra ribbon and embellishment on this, because maybe I think she might prefer to hang it as a breadboard eventually when fall's over. And that's another thing. Some of these DIYs, like the tray and the lady, are definitely all year round DIYs. They're not just for fall. So I wanted to give her that option. So I just made a little loop around with the Dollar Tree lace ribbon there, and I'm making it a bow and just kind of, fanning it out, but I tied it on using some Dollar Tree twine, and the greenery on the side there, I'm just going to use that and tuck it down underneath the twine so that, again, it can be removed. But this is one of my favorite DIYs today. I think this came up absolutely gorgeous. It's perfect for both Cottagecore and French Country, because both of those looks celebrate the romanticized version of living out in the country or a romanticized farmhouse. And lastly, I take my black marker and I'm going around the edge just to distress it a little bit, and that's it. I absolutely love the way this came out. If you had fun today, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. It really does help this video get seen on YouTube. And until the next one, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.